defined the medieval world quite like the Bayeux Tapestry, a 70-metre long piece of wall art that contains 41 ships, 200 horses, 3 kings of England and only 3 women. So what makes it so special?
When someone says medieval, the now world-famous Bayeux Tapestry is usually one of the first things that springs to mind, with its glorious Norman knights, the brave English housecarls, all within the beautifully decorated margins.
The famous scenes showing the death of Edward the Confessor, Harold Godwinson's swearing on the holy relics, and ultimately the Battle of Hastings and the fate of medieval England still fascinate people almost 1,000 years since it was made, remaining one of the most important and recognisable historical sources of the entire Middle Ages.
Today, the Bayeux Tapestry is housed in the northern French town of Bayeux, and we were lucky enough to get behind-the-scenes access to view the tapestry. The Bayeux Tapestry started life across the English Channel in Canterbury, home to some of the finest embroiderers of the medieval world. Although historians are still unsure as to exactly where, why and by whom the tapestry was constructed, it's fairly likely that Canterbury, renowned for its embroidery work in the 11th century, was the original home of the piece, and we think this for several reasons. Out of all the powerful men who feature on the tapestry, one seems somewhat out of place, and may, in part, explain the tapestry's construction location. Odo of Bayeux was only the half-brother of William I of England, yet he can be found front and centre throughout the 70-metre-long story.
As his name suggests, Odo was Bishop of Bayeux, but he also had large amounts of land in Canterbury and the larger Kent area. The tapestry was likely constructed in the 1070s, which means that Odo probably commissioned it to be made in Canterbury before bringing it over to Bayeux. It coincides with Bayeux Cathedral being consecrated, which means it probably was a celebratory piece to be used in the cathedral. Naturally, we don't know where the tapestry was between its construction and its first mention, but famously over the years, the tapestry has gone through quite a lot. During the French Revolution, the tapestry wasn't seen as important, so it was used as a cover for ammunition to keep the kegs dry. Somehow it survived this and was kept in storage. Decades later, the Nazis tried to steal it. Luckily, it was a failed attempt, or they could have destroyed it like they destroyed thousands of other historical documents. Today, the tapestry is actually in relatively good condition, considering what it's gone through. It's being looked after by the Bayeux Tapestry Museum, who keep it preserved for us to enjoy today.
So I'm Fanny Garb. I'm in charge of communications and promotions here at the Bayeux Tapestry Museum. And so I have a lot of press demands, and because the Bayeux Tapestry is so well known over the world, so I always welcome people each year to do documentaries or TV show or whatever.
What's one question you get asked the most by visitors?
Well, sometimes people ask me what's my favorite scene. So I would say it's difficult to tell because like every people, the crossing of the channel is so majestuous scene because you have all the boats and so on, and it's well known as well all over the world. You have also all the horses during the battles that are really impressive. But I like maybe the scene of Bagyas, that main Bayeux, where you can see William on a throne, and Harold, who give a oath on the relics of the Bayeux Cathedral.
Do you want to just give us a little bit of information on the upcoming project?
Yeah, so you know the Bayeux Tapestry is displayed in this building. This museum is actually a previous seminary. So it's dated from the 17th century and it was displayed here in 1983. So it's been 40 years now that the Bayeux Tapestry is displayed like you have seen it. And the new project for this new museum is to renovate this building and to add a new building at the back side to display the Bayeux Tapestry in inner length, actually. Because we had done a condition report on the Bayeux Tapestry with some experts on old ancient textiles, and they have reported all the damages on the textile, on the embroideries, and the preconization for the conservation is to display the ancient textile on an incline support. So the Bayeux Tapestry needs to be displayed in a length, so at least 70 meters long, and this building is not large enough to do that, so we have to build a new one to show and to display the Bayeux Tapestry.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Although the tapestry has become a useful and often cited historical source, it's probable that its primary function was that of art. Likely built to have been hung up in a lord's great hall, the Bayeux Tapestry shows us the Norman conquest of England, culminating the Battle of Hastings and when William the Conqueror defeated King Harold. But it's much more than that, and the story begins a few years before 1066, showing Harold in Normandy on campaign with William. It then shows us Harold sailing to Normandy, where he's captured and then freed by William, and the two then go gallivanting about northern France, which then leads to one of the most controversial scenes of the tapestry.
Scene 23. Harold can be seen swearing on some kind of table that many believe to contain holy relics. Whether Harold knew this or not has been up for debate ever since, but pro-Norman sources claim that Harold was swearing to uphold William's claim to the English throne upon the death of Edward the Confessor. William and Edward were loosely related, as Edward's mother was Emma of Normandy and William's great-aunt, meaning when the Confessor died without an heir, William did have a tenuous but legitimate claim to the throne. After the controversial swearing, the tapestry shows Harold returning to England when King Edward dies, actually being buried a few scenes before he is even declared dead. The next dozen scenes show William gathering ships, horses and all equipment needed for an invasion, well before the actual invasion of England can be seen in scene 39, which is followed by scenes of feasting and the destruction of the countryside around Hastings, with a particularly poignant scene showing one of the only 3 women in the whole tapestry trying to protect her children from the invaders. Scene 57 shows several Englishmen, identifiable by their large moustaches, being killed with the famous words Hic Harold Rex interfectus est, translating to "Here King Harold is killed." You would think it was clear who Harold was, and for a long time it was believed that the man under the word Harold was the king, with the now famous arrow in the eye. But this has been all but debunked, as the arrow looks like a much later addition, potentially covering up a spear, meaning that the second man under the words is killed, being cut down by a man on horseback, is more likely to be the final Anglo-Saxon king of England. Regardless of which of the slain is Harold, this is where the story on the tapestry ends, with many historians believing that a final section was either lost or never completed, which shows the coronation of William on Christmas Day 1066. Either way, the 58 scenes that make up the Bayeux Tapestry show the story of William's triumph over the only other claimant to the throne of England. Or does it?
It leaves out key parts of the story, with many of the most important people conveniently left out. Firstly, there is no mention or depiction of the Battle of Stamford Bridge, fought just a few weeks before Hastings, which saw Harold Godwinson systematically destroy the army of Harold Hardrada, one of the most feared men of his age, and yet another claimant to the throne of England. One reason this key battle may have been omitted is because of the heavy southern bias in the tapestry. The battle took place near York, and although it was incredibly important in the story of William and his invasion, the fact that it was so far up north meant it was simply not deemed worthy of mention. On the other hand, the more likely reason it wasn't included is that it gives us 2 things William and the new Norman court of the 1070s did not want revealed. Firstly, it gives us another claimant in Hardrada, as well as showing Godwinson, the usurper who went back on his oath, defeating a large army before descending on Hastings to face William, potentially making William's victory at Hastings seem less impressive. As well as the Battle of Stamford Bridge and Hardrada, another claimant, arguably the one with the best blood claim, is left out. Edgar Atheling was the nephew of the late Edward the Confessor, and although he grew up in Hungary and was only a teenager in 1066, Edgar was declared king after the city of London heard of Harold's death at the Battle of Hastings.
Clearly, this didn't last long, or we likely wouldn't have the Bayeux Tapestry. But again, like with Stamford Bridge, we see another claimant removed from the story to make it seem as it was simply Harold the Oathbreaker against William the rightful heir.
The Bayeux Tapestry is both a piece of beautiful art and a really important historical document, showing all-out war and the real human costs behind it. From the burning buildings and the lavish feasts to the woman protecting her children, the Bayeux Tapestry shows in a very easy to digest form the horrors and the majesty of 11th century Europe. The tapestry also goes a long way to dispel the Dark Ages myth. After 1,000 years of mistreatment and a attempted robbery, it's amazing that we still have it. Unlike the dusty Latin text that usually accompany things like this, the Bayeux Tapestry gives us a uniquely charming way of viewing the Norman conquest, which allows a unique look back in time like no other. You can visit the Bayeux Tapestry in the Bayeux Tapestry Museum here in Bayeux.